Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Facebook Live this evening. I'm just waiting for my guest for the evening, Luke Elliott, to join us. I'm very excited about this evening and having a guest that we can actually chat about. Here we go. Here he is. All right, let's try and add him again.
Hello.
Hi, I don't know what happened there, but you froze basically.
Oh, so I look very attractive then. Yeah.
So hopefully it won't
Normally
happen
does
again.
that, doesn't it?
Hopefully it
Yeah, it
won't
does that
happen again.
face expression. Yeah.
What I'm going to have to do is try not to kind of like talk over you, because they're a bit bad for that. But obviously, if I do that, then we're going to drown each other out. So yeah.
The
You
best
froze.
thing to do is if one of us talks and then when we pause and then the other one starts.
Good
That may be
idea.
a better
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live this evening. I'm really, really excited because I've got a guest this evening. Want to introduce Luke Elliott, who has many years in the raw feeding industry and many years experience. Also has a lot of knowledge when it comes down to animal nutrition. So we're going to be firing hopefully lots of questions at Luke to answer. But mainly the structure of tonight is going to be about raw, my kind of like followers, and he's gone again.
I'm back again. I'm
Guys,
not sure.
I was going to say,
I've
guys,
got full.
anybody
Go on, carry
right,
on.
guys, and anybody that's kind of watching, I do apologize because this is kind of the first time that I've done a shared live. So if Luke drops out at any point in time, then I'll obviously attempt to add him back in again, and so we can like pick up where we left off. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do it fairly seamlessly this evening. So yeah, like I say, Luke's got lots and lots of experience in the raw sector. He's been working with like raw food for many years, and also has a lot of experience with animal nutrition. So I'm really, really delighted to have Luke with us this evening. We're going to be doing a live on raw this evening, but what we're mainly going to be, and he's gone again. Sorry guys, lost Luke again. This might be something that we have to keep trying to add back. Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about this evening is hi again.
I'm moving, so hopefully I'll have much better signal now. I just
Okay.
got to try and prop my goods up. Hang on a minute.
Okay. Sorry guys if I'm repeating myself, but we have to get Luke back again. So yeah, what this week is going to be about really is if you're already raw feeding and thinking what I'm feeding, is it nutritious enough? Is it a balanced diet? There's lots of different types of raw food diets out there. There's obviously a complete premixes. There's the DIY diet. There's I got it wrong earlier on. I said the model prey, the prey model diet. So there's lots of different. And one thing that I get asked a lot as well, because my supplements mainly kind of fit with a raw diet, is, you know, is it balanced enough? Is there enough kind of like nutrition within what I'm feeding? So hopefully if we manage to keep Luke on camera long enough, he can have a chat and talk to us a little bit more about the different types of raw diet that's available. If you're not feeding raw and you're thinking about kind of transitioning to raw and want to have a little bit of kind of like insight and information as to, is it the right thing to do, what benefits does it actually give, then again we can kind of talk about that. And over the coming weeks we're going to be talking about the transition from dried food or any other types of food onto raw. I'll try and add Luke back again. Oh, he's back. There we go.
I'm back.
Can you hear me? Can you hear what I'm saying when you go off?
It's that no, I can't. It literally just cut straight off. But I've got full signal now. I've moved in the house, so hopefully it'll be a bit better.
Okay. I was just saying what we're going to do this week actually is, without repeating myself, sorry guys, is just saying about different types of raw. So you know, obviously the pre-made completes, the DIY, so the 80-10-10, the bath diet. I called it model prey earlier, but it's prey model. So we're going to be talking about the different the different types
Tomato,
of
tomato.
raw. and like I was saying, people that are obviously kind of feeding raw at the moment, and if they're kind of thinking, am I actually feeding a complete, like, balanced, nutritious raw? Do I need to add anything else to it? Is it sufficient? Are they getting everything they need? So we'll talk a bit about that, and then also people that want to transition across from any other sorts of food. So obviously dry kibble, any other types that people are feeding, that they want to think about moving over to the different types of raw. We're going to be talking about that and how to actually do that, but more in depth over the coming weeks, really, because that's quite an in-depth thing, so we can't kind of cover that all in one go. But I think probably what most people are thinking, and again, they might be thinking about moving over because they've got issues with their dog. They might have digestive issues that they're thinking, is it the food I'm feeding? It might be that they've got an increase in allergies, and they're thinking that there's certain ingredients in the diet that they're already feeding that, you know, aren't beneficial, and they're causing problems and exacerbating allergic symptoms. So, you know, there's lots of reasons why people are thinking about transitioning over to raw from what they're already feeding. So I think the first question kind of thing that perhaps we ought to broach is from a nutritional aspect. So obviously, what's the benefits of going from any other food over to raw?
Okay, now that's interesting because I put the foods into three different categories. So I put them into commercial or shop brought food. So I wanted to try and make this video for everyone, not just raw feeders. I wanted to try and bring everyone and get everyone involved. So
Yeah.
the three feeding aspects I did, it was commercial or shop bought, and then the next one was raw food, whether that be commercial or DIY. And then the one after that was going to be home cooked foods. Now I can run over the pros and cons slightly of those, or we can just delve straight into raw food and start ripping that apart.
Well,
It's up to
it
you.
can be a bit controversial, can't it, with the whole raw
Yeah.
food, because there are so many different sort of forums and so many different opinions and views on what people think is the best way to feed raw. So, like I said, we could kind of spend an hour going through that, but I think perhaps mainly if we look at what you just said, so we'll go through those kind of briefly, and then if we run out of time, we can, like I said, we're going to do it week on week anyway, so we can kind of cover, hopefully, a lot of the questions that people have got. And please do type your questions in, because, you know, Luke can answer them for you. Any concerns, any worries, you know, please do type them in. I don't know whether what I'll do, Luke, if anyone's typing them, then obviously I'll interrupt and we can answer the questions as we go. So over to you.
Yeah. Anyway, so right, I'll go through commercial and shop brought food first. So like the pros to this will mainly be, so this is like the dry or wet. Also, you've got your dry food and your wet food, the commercial and shop brought food. So the pros to these would be along the lines of they're cost effective majority of the time, unless you've got a vet prescription diet, and then it's going to be a bit more expensive. But 9 times out of 10, they can be more cost effective. Also, it's convenient. It's quite easy to feed. It's just you open a bag, plop it in a bowl. It makes it easiest for us all. If we're all really busy, we can just throw it in a bowl and go to work. So that's not a problem. Also, it's balanced, so it's regulated. Dry food is regulated quite heavily, and they have to abide by certain rules. They can put whatever food they feel or they fancy, they can put in there to build that nutritional requirement. They don't necessarily have to put in fresh whole foods. They can put in whatever they feel, but it has to reach recommended nutritional quantities. But the cons to the commercial foods and all that sort of stuff is you normally have poor quality nutrition in there. So you have poor quality meats, you have poor quality cereals, poor quality vegetables, bits like that. When I say poor quality, they're not, let's say, readily available to the dog. So it makes it difficult for the dog to break down and use it within their body. So that's a bit of a downside to feeding the dry and wet foods, because there is so much cereal in there. there's so much soya and things like this, and a lot of carbohydrates, which the dogs do struggle with a lot of the time to break down in mass quantities.
I was going to interrupt you there. Isn't that to do with like the amylase? So obviously the dogs don't
Yeah.
produce amylase, and that's the reason why, without getting too technical, that's the reason why they
Yeah,
can't break it down.
it's very interesting with the amylase aspect, because with the amylase aspect, you'll need the amylase to break down the vegetable marrow, the cell wall. However, if I saw some research the other week, and if you look around the world, different or yeah, dogs around the world have evolved differently, let's say. So in Australia, you'll have dogs which thrive much better off a prey model diet, which we'll get onto later, than let's say what they will off a bath diet. Now, this is because in the industrial world that we live in England, we've got, everything's commercial now. It's all readily available. We don't have to work for our food. Everything is done for us, and commercial food, that is, we can just give our dogs. But then in Australia, they're not so populated as us, so they still follow their ancestral ways and such. So the dogs are still eating fresh food. And I find that through the evolution of animals, like animals in England are much more tolerable to digesting vegetables than, let's say, animals that are in Australia or in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
This makes it confusing because we're now going to the point where everything's individual to your dog. So some dogs do really well on vegetables, some dogs just don't. So I'm not going to turn around to you and say, oh, well, you're wrong, you should be feeding veg. And I'm not going to turn around to this person and say, well, you're wrong, you shouldn't be feeding. I'm not going to do that because, different dogs for different, it works different ways.
Yeah, and I think we could be delving down really into like, DNA, genetics, the whole thing, if we go in too much in depth with that. So that's for another day.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to raw food. Raw food, commercial or DIY. The pros to this, it can bring masses of variety. Now, variety is key, and I will say this in raw food or dried biscuits or wet food. You should always be feeding a variety of foods. I can't see why people say get one brand and stick to it, because when you stick to one brand only and one food or one protein only, you can actually create intolerances in your dog. You can bring them on.
And we see that quite a lot, don't we? Because people, like you say, they think that their dog's got a favourite and they say, oh, we'll stick with that. And then after, a month of solidly feeding that particular protein and those ingredients, then a dog does kind of develop that sensitivity. So it is important, like us, just to change up the diet.
Yeah, and the variation will create much more health over time anyway, because different parts of meat, different micronutrients in, all those sorts of things. So we should be trying to feed as variant as possible. It can be cost effective, raw feeding, especially if you're doing the DIY side. You do need to be quite experienced if you're doing DIY, but you can make it a lot cheaper that way. For anyone that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing as such, or they're getting new into it, I'd probably say to stick to the commercial completes for now. Learn what you need to learn, and then approach doing DIY later. This will be safer and more healthier for your dog, and plus your stress levels will be a lot lower. so you'll be all right. Another bonus to raw food is that it clears up a lot of health niggles. Now, I see this all the time where people will come from a processed, not very good food and will come onto a fresh food, and health niggles will just clear. It'll just disappear. And people are like, wow, it's just gone. And I find that, a miracle of raw, let's say. Some it doesn't clear up, but a lot of the time you'll get dog come in with like itchy skin, yeasty ears, and you'll pop them on a fresh food diet and it will clear up over the next few weeks. And that's a bonus, just because you're feeding an animal a diet which they can digest and they can appropriately use within their body.
Do you think a lot of that basically is because whatever food they've been feeding, say a kibble before, because it is all processed and that there are ingredients that are probably chemically enhanced? Do you think that's the reason why it can cause a lot of allergies?
I think so. I think when you start adding in additives and changing things, especially, so when you start changing things, the body doesn't recognize it anymore. So then this makes it harder for the body to do something with. So then you're putting a lot of stress in the body because it's got, let's say you ingested some food, it's now sat in there and it's going, what do I do? Sort of thing. It takes time to digest, and the body takes time to sort it out. And I'll talk about homeostasis in a little while, and how we need to keep that within our dogs and try to keep them really balanced and healthy and that sort of thing. On raw, the cons of raw food will be that you've got to balance it yourself if you're doing DIY. It takes up a lot of freezer space, so that you can no longer just pop it in your pantry out the way. And cleanliness, it takes a certain amount of cleanliness to raw feed. You can't be like touching it with your fingers and then eating your sandwich. So it
Yeah.
takes a certain amount of cleanliness.
Do you think there's a lot of sort of negative sort of, how would you put it, negative press about raw and about the bacteria and everything like that, and people kind of are a little bit afraid of going down that line because of what they read in the media? I mean, at the end of the day, it's as long as you actually practice you know, hygiene as you would if you're cooking chicken or anything like that. I mean, pretty much it's the same thing, isn't it? So it doesn't pose any further health risk.
It doesn't. It does not cause any further health risks than our own food. You know, it's something that you just have to think about what you're doing. You can't just throw it around here willy-nilly and everything. And yes, you may need some utensils
Yeah.
to that are appropriate to use. So let's say a Tupperware tub to make sure there's no leaking
Yeah.
in there. And if you're popping it in the fridge, you know, you put it on the bottom drawer where you put your other raw meat instead of above all your fruit and veg. It's just little things. Make sure you're wearing gloves when you're handling raw food. It is
Yeah.
common sense stuff. And then, you know, as long as you keep to these rules and you keep to the same rules that you abide in your own house, you know, in the freezer, some people just keep your, like in my freezer, I have a little poly box and I just fill that with my dog's food, and then all my other food is next to it, sort of thing. It's not in the raw food. So you are keeping it, that separation is there, which is good, and you do need. I wouldn't recommend just mixing it all up in the same freezer.
So let's look at the two sort of you know, types of people. So let's say the ones that actually already feed raw, and they're thinking, well, is it nutritious enough, and is there anything else that I need to be putting in it? So we are then looking at you know, for like essential fatty acids and botanicals and the proteins and all of these kind of things. So what would you consider then to be I mean, like, I know you said every dog is individual, but what would you consider to be a balanced sort of diet when it comes to raw?
Balance. I think I'll bring this question back when we go through the prey model, the bath, and the DIY aspect, because when I go through all three of those, I'll tell you the little things you should be looking for within them all. So there are aspects within them all that make them more complete than others. There are things that people should be looking for, and unfortunately, you know, the bad guys in the kibble manufacturers, you know, there are also some bad guys in the raw feeding world. So you do need to do your research, and you do need to look up where the ingredients are coming from, what's happening with it, and these sorts of things. So research is key. And there's a few questions I've got in here that I'll talk about earlier and later. And it'll be the simple questions you can ring up the companies and ask yourself, and it's just to see if you can get a reaction from them which is suitable. Let's say, you know, if you ring up these companies and you ask them for the breakdown of or the analysis of their food and exactly what's in it, they should be able to give it to you. It's a simple question, and they should just be able to just look it up and just tell you exactly what is in their food. And there's no problem. But some companies you ring, and I've experienced this, you ring and you go, oh, so what is your food made up of? What parts of the body are in there? Oh, well, I don't know. You need to be a little bit more. There needs to be some passion in what they're doing and what they're creating and what they're making. And you know, you can't just put meat and heart in a mince and call that a complete. Even though heart is offal, it's still not the right offal.
I've got a couple of comments, or questions rather. Well, comment from Tony Bowyer. Thank you, Tony. She's put press and vet scaremongering, common sense food preparation. So that clearly is down to, you know, the raw and how you prepare it, and like you say, scaremongering, saying about salmonella, and you know, people are dying, dogs are dying from it. So yeah, she's right with that. You know, that they do scaremonger really. But then,
and you know, the prevalence of salmonella, it is a real thing, and as much as you
but
know,
it is within our food as well, isn't it? It is within our food.
Exactly.
It's not exclusive to dog food. So
it is absolutely everywhere. And if you look at the kibble manufacturers, you know, there's just as many salmonella reports in there as what there is raw dog food. But the thing that I like about some of the raw dog foods, and there's one manufacturer there's one manufacturer that I really like, and when she found something wrong with her food, she was like, no, that's it, I'll recall the whole lot. And when a company does that, they literally got in contact instantly, recalled every single product that was anything to do with that production day, and incinerated it all. And these are the companies that we should be looking for. You know, when you see a company go, oh yeah, I've got a recall, and if you look into it and they've told everyone right on point and know exactly what they're doing, they've got a process involved in it, these are the companies which are really going to do well, because bacteria is everywhere and can grow everywhere. I mean, you know, you can be walking down the road and put your hand on a railing where a pigeon has pooped, and pick up salmonella. It's
Yeah, yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
So you can't avoid it, you know. And then for someone to turn around and say, "Oh, well, I was doing the dog food this morning, and now I feel ill, that's salmonella,"
Mhm.
it's just a bit
Yeah.
far-fetched.
Lauren, can you see the comments there, Luke, as well?
I actually can see the comments,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Lauren's, but I really want to find a good multivitamin for our raw fed dog. Any thoughts? Lauren, I believe that you use Proflax anyway, so that's got quite a lot of vitamins and minerals in. But have you got any thoughts, Luke, as to, I mean, in terms of like a raw fresh food anyway, so that's got a lot of vitamins and minerals in, hasn't it? So, you know,
Vitamins and minerals is something that I don't necessarily use unless I have a reason to do so.
yeah,
So I use a supplement. I use Proflax. And oh, by the way, my parcel arrived today. Yeah, I use Proflax supplements, and they work extremely well for my dog. I've tried
yeah,
so many different supplements. I've tried salmon oil, krill oil, wild Alaskan salmon oil, all sorts, and just flax oil just works better on my dog. Yeah, I work with other dogs, and some of them do better on other oils.
yeah,
Again,
yeah,
I just think it works for your dog. And
yeah,
also, on a push with the oil thing, I probably might bring it up later, but just in case I forget, in bath completes, if they've got a salmon oil in, I wouldn't go for them as much as if they've got a plant-based oil
yeah.
in, plainly because once you defrost, let's say a
Oxidizes.
bath, yes, they oxidize,
Yeah,
and that's the
yeah,
problem, you know. So you've now got, let's say, you look on the back, oh wow, salmon oil, that's
yeah,
amazing, but
yeah.
it's actually no good to your dog when you open it. However, flax oil doesn't do that. So
Yeah.
you know you can defrost it, and it still has a value to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Tony just put recently started my boy on Proflax. Very pleased with the results. So that's great.
Very good.
Pleased to hear that, Tony. So shall
Yeah.
we elaborate a bit on the three types of the DIY, the complete, and then the prey model, and then perhaps next week, because we don't want to bore people too much by dragging, because we can chat about this for about 2 hours.
I've got so much written down here, right? And I've gone through about a tenth of
So
it.
perhaps next week we can
Yeah.
actually talk about transitioning from a kibble to raw food, and obviously then kind of what to look out for, so what to expect in the transition in terms of, you know, the dog and the behavior and the biological functions and those kind of things. But perhaps this week we can just elaborate a little bit more on the different types of raw, because obviously I know you've got a lot of experience in that, so
Yeah,
that'd be
it'll
good.
be absolutely epic next time if everyone can get involved and comment in and say what their problems were with starting raw, or what
Yeah,
they fear of, or what their fear is about starting raw, because that'll help me so much. I can in a shop environment, I can start a dog on raw in 5 minutes. You know,
yeah,
I explain the first week and I say, right, so we'll do the first week, and then
yeah,
every week I'll put you know, when you come in the shop, we'll do a new a week for you to go away with and for
yeah,
you to use. And by the end of week, to be honest, 4, we never see him again. Like, it's a 6 week sort of process. By the time we
yeah,
get to week 4, they sort of know what they're doing. They're off, and they might ask a few questions, but
yeah.
they're away. I think it's just the same with everything. It's starting raw feeding. I think
It
everyone sees
is.
all these really amazing photos, what people are feeding their dogs, and you know, all these fancy foods. And as much as I really like the people that make these, and they look absolutely epic, and they should still keep making these meal plans. I think it does scare people sometimes, and that's
Yeah.
why I try to make just completely simple meals. So I'll just throw it on a plate and go, "This is what I throw at my dog,"
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of thing.
Which I think sometimes when you are transitioning to go from, you know, a dried food to a raw, that is quite an important key point, to actually keep it simple. Because I think if you then
Yeah.
start, like I say, looking at some of the things that people are kind of saying, you think, oh, I need to be adding that, need to be adding that. And I think that's the whole
And then,
purpose of really what we're talking
and
about.
then,
It just creates too much confusion for people, and it's a lot of
and then you
information
end
to
up with
take in.
fucking pills all over your dog's food.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So you know, in terms of like the DIY sort of diet, then, so would you know, in terms of, would you suggest that's a good place to start?
So yeah, we'll go through all
Yeah,
three.
let's go
So
through all three. Yeah,
we've got the DIY, you got the bath completes, and you got the prey model. We'll go through DIY first. Now,
yeah,
DIY, I find the most scary thing about it is the percentages.
yeah,
Now, everyone needs to listen. Percentages are guidelines. They are guidelines and not something you have to stick to 100%.
yeah,
So the 80-10-10 rule, oh, that's prey model. We'll go on the 80, we'll do that when I do prey model. But yeah, with DIY, percentages are something that's confusing, but I feel that, you know, people can write this down now. But if you get something like a neck or a chicken wing, these types of meaty bones will either be, oh, that'll be about the 30 to 40% bone ratio. And then when you move to, let's say, a vertebrae, so you've got the spine and neck, that'll move up a bit to probably 40, 50% bone. And then when you get to the feet, we're now looking at about 70% bone. So it's starting to go quite high now. And then you've got your bonuses. So let's say you've got chicken wings, they're going to be 40% bone. So all you've got to do is weigh a chicken wing, comes out at 60 grams, and pop 60 grams boneless in that to bring that down, bring the percentage of bone down. Then and then once you get confident with it, you won't be so finicky about the numbers because it'll become visionary. So you'll be looking, you'll go, oh, that's a bit right. And then what you'll do is you'll be watching your dog more than the piece of paper.
I was just going to say that it's actually also about knowing your own dog, isn't it? So I know that, you know, with Lola, I raw feed her, and I know if I put too much bone in, she doesn't like it. But she's a big dog; she's a boxer, so it is all according. There isn't. I know we're kind of saying about, you know, which is most beneficial and balanced, but it is really about knowing your dog as well.
Yeah, and it is exactly that. I mean, I've helped dogs which can take nearly 20, well, can take 20% bone and upwards, and then I've worked with dogs that can take less than 5% bone. I must admit, the ones that struggle to digest bone, it tends to be an enzyme deficiency rather than they just can't digest bone. But you know, a lot of people go, "Oh, my dog just can't digest bone. I can't feed it." It does not necessarily that. It's just that they're lacking an enzyme. Let's say a bit of DNA hasn't turned on to release that enzyme, so they're just lacking that bit. So you have to implement things in the diet to help the digestion. So a good thing to do is, like, sweet potato has a enzyme in it which helps break down sweet potato. So also you have to look at the food you're feeding to help break down types of things, down different types of food, which will help dramatically. Confidence, I think, is another thing with DIY. I think people need to stick to what they know, but learn something new. And once they got confident at it and feel that they can do it, jump in and go for it. And with DIY, you don't necessarily have to just go DIY and instantly do it. You can feed complete meals. Let's say 5 days a week and just do DIY twice. And DIY can even be that you feed complete meals, but you give them some boneless chunks sometimes and some meaty chunks sometimes. It doesn't have to be that you're completely making your meal from scratch. If you're worried about making your meal from scratch, just do a little bit at a time. And it's what I tend to do if I'm in a shop environment. I'll just slowly introduce them. Just every week, I'll give them something new to go away with, and I'll say, right, you want to do this DIY meal tomorrow. So you're stretching your head, get home, get it sorted, get it out. And once you start repeating that, you learn and get better and better and better.
But I mean, generally we kind of live in quite a fast-paced, busy life, don't we, in an environment, and everyone's always kind of rushing around and are also pushed for time. So I think that can be the scary part of it. People kind of thinking, oh, I've got to devote loads of time to this, and weigh that out and weigh that out, and it's like, and that's why I think that people obviously opt for completes. But even the DIY, there are companies that obviously do literally like the 80-10-10, aren't they? So there's nothing outside of it, just actually is the bone and proteins and then some offal or tripe or whatever.
So the last thing on the DIY front of things, I think it's just go. I think you're best to go at it gradually. And with DIY, I don't personally take a lot of time doing it, but then I'm quite experienced at it. I just go in the freezer, I'll grab that, grab this, grab that, pop it on a plate, and then just give it to my dog. But then I can say that and I can see it right in my head, but for someone sitting next to me, that might be like an impossible task. So I do understand that, and I do understand that it will take time to learn how to do it, but it takes time to learn to do a lot of things. So I'll just say, just have the confidence to go for it. Just do it once or twice a week, and then work upwards from there. And once you're doing DIY wheels, it gives you quite a sense of, I don't know, being good at what you're doing.
So let's move on to completes then. So if someone's looking for a complete, there's a lot of different kind of companies out there, and what would they choose?
I'm going to put Bath Complete in front of this one. So by Bath Complete, it's obviously a biologically appropriate raw feeding. So this is going to be feeding where it'll have vegetables in it as such. So it will be biological raw feeding with vegetables in. With these ones, they're absolutely brilliant. They're easy. The instructions come on the packet. So you're buying it from a commercial outlet anyway. So they're going to have nice information on it. Everything's brilliant. With the Bath Completes, I'll try to stick with completes that are registered at the Pet Food Manufacturing Association, PMFA. I'll try and stick to ones that are regulated by them because they are regulated and they've got rules to stick to again. And they have to use certain ingredients. They have to use they have to use sort of human grade ingredients that just haven't gone into the food chain. You know, there's a lot of if you go on their website, there's a lot of restrictions that they've got to stick to. So at least you know, or you've got the confidence that they are actually doing what they say they're doing because they're registered with someone that's making sure they keep in check on them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's really. And then again with the bath completes, the only slightly bad thing I can find with them is what we were saying earlier about the oxidization. So if you have fish oils in a bath complete, it's probably going to be it's not going to be available to your dog by the time you defrost it and giving it to it. Perhaps this can also rely onto the vegetables. Like if you bite an apple, leave it on the side,
Yeah.
it's 10 minutes before that apple goes brown. So when you're defrosting your food, you're defrosting them over 12 hours, and by the time you're feeding them, some of the goodness is going to have been depleted out of the vegetables. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Unless in the manufacturing process, the vegetables come in frozen or fresh, and minced immediately and frozen, freeze blasted instantly.
Yeah.
So for me, if they're getting them in frozen, mincing them, freezing it straight away, that's perfect. Not a problem, you know, feed that meal. But if it is sitting about and then it's sitting on your worktop, the vegetables are going to lose their nutritional value.
And that's a DIY complete, that one, yeah?
So that'll be the complete side where you're adding the vegetables into the bath completes. Next we can move on to prey model. Prey model is something that I like in the fact that hang on, so prey model is a lovely bit, and I feed let's say prey model, but then I add my own vegetables in. With prey model, 80-10-10, it's something that doesn't really exist, and I think people should stop being so single-minded onto 80-10-10. And I've been to manufacturers before, and the 80-10-10 is just a word to help people understand what's going on. I feel, you know, it will never be 80% muscle meat, it will never be 10% bone, it will never be 10% offal. There will be variations throughout that. With the prey model diet, there are aspects that you need to really look into to make sure it's a complete food. So with the bath completes with the vegetables in, the vegetables will be adding nutrition in there to help aid with the loss of nutrition within the lack of body parts. But within the prey model diet, you have to make sure you're feeding a big variation of body parts. So by that, I mean literally from nose to tail. Everything as you go through needs to be fed to your animal. And once you can achieve that, if you can, you're feeding a complete diet. So me personally, I've worked at MVM, Manifold Valley Meats, and I worked there and spent a week there. And I can safely say they have their own slaughterhouse on site, and that every single part of that animal goes into their dinner. Everything, because they've got their own slaughterhouse, and they can choose what they take off that animal to put into their food. So that's something that I bear in mind with the prey model diet, is that you've got to make sure it's got a big variation of pieces of the animal in. So that'll be offal or different offals. So offal will be the liver or any excreting organ. Offal will be. I'll also put muscle meat down to being lungs, heart, and tripe. I put those under muscle meat because they're not as nutritionally dense as, let's say, offal is. And offal is an excreting organ in my mind. It's not something that just pumps blood around the body.
Yeah.
But what else have I got on here? Yeah, some like I've said throughout the whole thing, some dogs do better on other diets than other diets. So some dogs do really well on bath diets, some dogs do really well on prey model diets. If I'm honest, I have been in the experience where I have fed one of my dogs a bath diet and then the other one a prey model diet, because one did really well on prey model and the other did really well on bath. But if I turned it around and gave them opposites, one would end up with itchy skin, he would smell, and the other one would start going dry. And so it just goes to show how things change and how different things can affect different dogs.
Absolutely, it comes back to the same thing of actually knowing your dog and knowing actually, you know, what is suitable for it. So it's not going to be one size fits all, and that's, I think, you know, where it can get a bit confusing, because perhaps people do start and then it doesn't quite suit their dog and they think, oh, actually it's not the right thing to do, and go back to the original diet, rather than actually having an understanding that it is more about trying to find the right raw diet for your dog.
Yeah, I have a story on this one. The other day I was in work and someone came in and they were saying that their dog just constantly keeps licking their feet. And I mean, it's getting to the point where they are actually taking the hair off their feet and they're getting
Yeah.
pink
Yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
And he was going, I've changed my dog's food. I've done everything. I've done an elimination diet. I've done absolutely everything. It's just, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I was like, 1 second, I checked the gums of the dog and he had gum disease. So, well, what I felt were signs of gum disease. I'm no vet, but you know, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
signs of gum disease. And I said, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's your problem there. He's in pain, so he's licking constantly.
Yeah. So it's
And
not an allergy. It's actually gum
no,
disease.
it's not. It's not an allergy. It's just the fact that the dog's in pain because he's got really bad gums. And if you would
Yeah.
have fed him milk from the start, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I think that's we've covered a lot of stuff tonight, which is fantastic. I've learned a lot as well. So there's you
Good. Hope
thinking.
so.
Yeah, I know a lot of things about raw, but I've learned a lot too.
Yeah.
And then next week, if we perhaps start to talk about maybe the transition a bit more, and like I say, what to look out for, and please everybody, fire lots of questions in the comment box when we go off air, and we
I'm
really,
here all evening, so ask me anything.
we really value your questions. I mean, we don't have many, to be honest with you. I don't think I've had any, but I want to say hi to Gemma because she's watching. Hi to Moddy, Catherine, Jodie. So thanks everybody that's tuned in. I really appreciate you spending your time tuning in tonight. And we will pick up with this next Thursday. I know I normally do lives on Tuesday, but if Luke's going to be with me, then it's going to be Thursday for the next couple of weeks. And if there's anything you'd like us to cover as well, then please please let us know what kind of part of the raw side of things you'd like us to go through, and then we can perhaps cover that as well.
Especially because the more opinions we get, the more I can elaborate on those opinions. I mean, don't worry about whether you're right or wrong. It's all about the opinion that you've got, and I can elaborate on an opinion. So, you can say something, and then I will try and work with you to give you a good answer.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you can say whatever and please don't feel that you can only ask me raw feeding questions. Ask me about any part of the diet. It doesn't, you could be feeding biscuits. I'm not fussed. Admittedly, I'm a raw or I'm a fresh feeding advocate. I'm not a raw advocate. I'm a fresh feeding advocate.
Yeah.
And any amount of fresh food will always be better than processed food, no matter what way you look at it. At the end of the day, you don't go to your GP and turn around and go, oh, I'm really feeling horrible. And he goes, here you go, have a McDonald's. It just doesn't happen. They turn around and say, yeah, you need to start eating healthy and making sure you're getting your diet right. And, and that's what we need to be saying to people. We need to be creating a world of healthy animals.
We do, and like you say, it's not just about going right. Okay, I'm going to transition over to raw. It's about a lot of aspects in that, and that comes down to like lifestyle and everything. You talked about homeostasis earlier on, so it's not really something we've touched on yet. But next week we can kind of go through that a little bit, because I think that's really important.
We could probably do a whole live on homeostasis, to be honest with you.
We could, because it is quite an in-depth and very interesting topic. So I think, but again, I think people understanding what that is and the balance, that is a really important aspect of your dog's health. It's not just diet; it's everything, which is why I love a holistic therapist and why I do Proflax, because it's combined. It is not just about one thing. So we can talk more next week. We'll be back at 7 o'clock next week. And we'll be covering more on this topic. So I want to thank Luke very, very much. It's been really interesting. I value your time and being here. And thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for watching tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.